What's good, everybody? It's your boy JB, Nine Dudes representing the No Weapon Podcast, representing the No Weapon Podcast. Welcome, guys. Today, it is a blessing to be amongst you guys once again. Um, Man, I just wanted to say thank you to everybody that was subscribed to my TikTok, everybody that was supportive of me from my live streams on YouTube, right down to my shows on IG, TikTok, and all the rest of my social media. I appreciate you guys so much for your support. And I'm just giving everybody a chance to get in. Um, and this will probably be something for the replay game gang as well. But today I have an interesting show. I have a friend of mine whose name is Asia Branch. Miss Asia Branch will be joining us shortly. But today's topic, I was thinking about moving it around a little bit, but today's topic will be about an interesting phrase that I've seen or somebody used where they tried to compare Tupac to Donald Trump. And I said, you know what, that is an interesting comparison, especially when I have my point of view that I would like to share on that. It's called, What Does Tupac and Donald Trump Have in Common? It's called, What Does Tupac and Donald Trump Have in Common? And all this is to go through the whole idea of freedom of speech. And, okay, here she goes right now. Good evening, Asia. How you doing this evening?
I'm doing pretty good. And you can hear me well?
Yes, I can hear you now. Absolutely.
All right, good.
Wow, it has been a long time. How's life been for you so far?
It's been a year, man. It's been a year.
Oh, I agree.
Yeah. How about you?
It's funny. My sentiments are the same. It's been a very long year. I don't think I've talked to you since the fires, but I was in the whole Eden Canyon fire and all of that. So I'm just now starting to get everything back focused. But I'm doing good.
I'm glad to hear that you're hanging in, though. Glad to hear you hanging in.
Absolutely. Thank you. Well, I don't know if you heard my intro to what I was talking about today for today's show. I think I left it in your comment section what we'll be discussing, right? Or maybe I did.
Just gonna double check in those comments. I'm not seeing anything. Hold on, let me see if I click the chat.
Okay. Oh, no, I was talking about maybe a few days ago when we had spoke.
Oh yeah, we would be going over everything that happened with Charlie Kirk and some of the things that I put out with the Tupac video that I had done a few weeks back.
Right. And your sister also did one like some months back as well.
Yes, she did. She did. Yeah.
I did remember that. And I was going to comment on that. But I'm trying to think of which one should we go through first. Well, I'll start with the Charlie Kirk. My question on the Kirk because that's more fresher than the Pac situation. There's been a lot of things said online about Charlie Kirk. Some I agree with, some I don't. One thing I gotta announce right now is anybody talking crazy about this man that he's dead. I've never agreed with that. But what about you? What is this Charlie Kirk situation? What does it draw from you? Like, especially when
I was angry about it. I mean, I remember the day I was at work and I was, it's like literally the last hour that I have before I have to leave. And, I'm calling my sister, trying to like get back in a better headspace because there's a lot going on at work. And she says to me, they killed Charlie. And I'm like, Charlie who? And she's like, Charlie Kirk. I'm like, wait a minute. Turning Point USA, Charlie Kirk? And she said yes. And from that day onward, I was furious because, for a couple of reasons. When I first moved out to Texas, before I even had a job, the first thing that I did was join up with Blexit, the movement that Candace started. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't, in a way, connected to Turning Point, right? They partnered up. So I did some events partnered up with Turning Point. So I was, I've done events at a college campus where Riley Gaines spoke. I've, done another event up in Tarrant County where it was, both Blexit and Turning Point. We were like doing tabling at that event where the lieutenant governor came to speak. So I was really a part of that movement in some way. And I felt like Charlie, because he was a millennial, he understood like how millennials were feeling. He understood it. He empowered us. And it was motivating. So when he was killed, I the first thought to my mind was vengeance. I mean, Erica Kirk definitely calmed a storm when she forgave the killer. Mm-hmm. Like she's a lot better than a lot of us, and it was her husband that was murdered. So the fact that she was able to forgive the murderer definitely says a lot about who she is. And I was furious. I saw people online talking about what they were talking about. I had to do a complete and total I don't even know what to call it. Like I would call it a fast, I guess you can say, like a fast on my cell phone, not trying to be on social media. I deleted the social media apps from my phone. I mean, they've been off my phone for a while, but even in my YouTube feed, it just kept popping up. And, you got to train the algorithm not to feed this stuff to you.
Absolutely.
So I was furious, and I still am. And, it's crazy because I was just talking to coworkers at work yesterday, and we were not yesterday, excuse me, on Thursday, and they were talking about the shooting that just happened here in Dallas. And I said to them, like, yo, I know why I left the East Coast for a reason. Like I wasn't one of those people that came here for the weather, right? I ran away from, migrant crime, a high cost of living, and Islamic radical terrorism, because it could happen at any moment with ISIS, right? These ISIS agents just hitting people with cars or whatever. And so I ran away from a radical situation to now be in a state again where instead of Allah Akbar, it's some Antifa or anti-ICE nonsense. It happened right up the street. So for it to happen literally less than a month after Charlie's death, I'm heated. I'm furious. So it's been, like I said, it's been a trying time. Trying time.
Yeah, I absolutely understand, and to join in with your whole sentiment about being furious, what had me upset was a lot of, because I'm a Christian, I think I told you that last time, and a lot of Christians, especially in the Black church, how they continue to slander Charlie after his death. Now, I'm gonna be honest with you, Asia. I didn't agree with everything he said. There's some things I agree with, some things I don't, but that's with anything and everybody, right? Mm-hmm. But I didn't like how the Black church not martyrized, but actually insulted this man's death. Like he got that's kind of harsh to say, you know what I mean? Even I believe anybody I disagree with, like I would never celebrate their death. You know what I mean?
Right.
That's totally immature, it's immoral, and it's not very Christian-like, which is hypocrisy.
It isn't. I mean, I've had issues with Black Christians for a long time. I mean, when Trump was the president the first time in his first term, I'm hearing Black Christians saying, I wish he would just be assassinated. And it's like, okay, but now as a Christian, why would you say that? Like you were, and then you got to consider that a lot of the Black Christians that I was talking to, they're older people. Like these are people who were alive when Kennedy was killed. And so I'm like, okay, so for the generation who saw what happened and lived what happened when a president was killed, how could you wish that on your country today? I don't care how much you don't like this guy. You know how many conservatives didn't like JFK? Do you think they wished him dead? They just wanted him impeached for cheating with, like, I don't know, like Marilyn Monroe or some crap, but it was never wishing him dead. And for Christians to do that today with Trump, and then fast forward, he's not even the president-elect yet. Someone takes a shot at him twice. And they really got a sense of how, violent it was and how unacceptable it was. But then I don't know, it's like they got sucked back into the Borg and back into the collective again, because they started doing all of that, oh, I think it was fake. Oh, I don't think it was real. I had a couple of young people saying, man, they shouldn't have missed. And it's like, but I know you were raised Christian. What's the matter with you? I'm not surprised by the Black church. I've been disappointed in the Black church for a very long time. When I recognized my conservatism, I knew there was something wrong with the Black church. It's why, even having moved here to Dallas, I still have not found the right church for myself, and why I refuse to do the Baptist church ever again. I will never go back to a Baptist church. I was raised Baptist, but I will never go back. It's like there's something about it where it feels like the blessings aren't coming from Jesus. Like I'm not messing with the Baptist church anymore. I just knew something was up 10 years ago when Trump was in the office the first time. Just knew.
Absolutely. And I agree with you 100%. As a matter of fact, I was raised in the church as well, and I saw the deterioration of what it used to represent and what it represents now. And that started about, like you said, about 10, I'll even reach as far as 20 years ago. You know what I mean? Once they're letting certain things in the church that shouldn't be there. You know what I mean? Certain mentalities. I know it's the rise of the prosperity gospel rather than the actual gospel. And that's what turns a lot of people off. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
Always asking for money. Let me get another 20 here. Stuff that just, it's unbiblical, really. And nobody reads the Bible. You have to fact check that. But yeah, I agree with you 100%. The Black church has let me down. I'm kind of calling it quits on church altogether as far as meeting in a building. That's why I started channels like this. Like I changed my channel to No Weapon Podcast so we can
Yeah.
have Bible study on here, so we can talk about God on here. Outside of the topics, we're going to discuss
Yeah,
today.
no, I think that's great because honestly, I think what a lot of people are finding is that in a couple of areas, it's not just in the Baptist church. Um, it's why I'm seeing issues across the board with just the religious institutions of Christian church in America. And the last stronghold I would argue would be the Catholic Church, but we saw on inauguration day with a female priest. Like I knew
Mhm.
then that the Catholic Church was like, I think like Gotti, they got you because you were the last stronghold. Baptist went down, Protestant churches were going down for other reasons, but they were going down. And it's the same thing happening in the Catholic Church. So I feel like the institutions where we would go to for the gospel and for, brotherhood in Christ, it's not there. It's not there. It's like if this is where we can feel the spirit of Christ rising again in America. It's definitely not going to be in those buildings. It's definitely not, because I honestly I characterize it as the time of the twilight. The new gods in Hollywood that we've created, they're coming down. These institutions, we've seen stories left and right about how a lot of these megalodon churches are just scams. We're seeing it right, left and right. They are in the news. They are collapsing. These pastors are getting caught. You're seeing a lot of, I call it money laundering. I'm like, they can say,
Right,
what
yeah.
they want. It's like, oh, it's not money laundering. I'm like, yo, your money is funny and your change is strange. Something's up. You're funneling money. This is money laundering. I don't have any evidence of it, but when you see how certain monies are moving through some of these churches and institutions, and even with Charlie Kirk and Turning Point, like what someone did, they sang like a canary. Someone released that internal memo saying that Charlie, pretty much showing that Charlie was suspicious of the money. Like, I think there was money being funneled. Like, he has TPUSA Faith, where they do these tours across the country where they're trying to really get young people into the church, and you're seeing it. You're seeing a lot more conversions into Christianity, which is a big deal. Like, the numbers are skyrocketing. Divorces are starting to go down. Young women are really starting to put their virtue, like they're really taking, it's like, because your virginity is gone, but they're starting to respect themselves. Men are becoming manly. You're seeing this shift, and you've been seeing it, I would say, for like the last 2.5, 3 years. And I would have to put a lot of that on Turning Point and TPUSA Faith, but the money is funny. And these churches that are part of it, it's like, can you trust these churches? I think you're not going to find Christ. It's not that you won't find Christ there, but you're not going to find a lot of a flock, if you will, because I think they're all like, I don't want institution religion. I want to work on myself. I want a better relationship with Christ. I want that, but I have to find a different way. So the fact that you're creating an environment where you're not separating Christ from like the social issues, you're not separating Christ from policy, because honestly, I think a lot of people misinterpreted the idea of separation of church and state. It was like, it was never meant for God to not be in government, or God for not to be in our society. It was to
Right.
prevent government from doing what it's doing, preventing us from speaking the gospel in every aspect of our society, socially, politically, in government, in our schools. This is what the separation of church and state was. It was to prevent government from overreaching, not preventing Christians from dictating how society should be. And I think you're seeing that shift now. So that's good. But I don't think you're going to see it with the church. What you're doing, that's phenomenal.
Thank you. Appreciate that. And in the whole spirit of discussing Christianity, another thing that came up online a lot, especially dealing with Charlie Kirk, was that he was a devout Christian.
Yeah.
A lot of posts that I've seen it, but there were some points that he made that made me be like, I don't know. What about you? Do you think that is? I never know. I know we're not supposed to question people's faith in God, but just in your opinion, do you think that it was actually genuine and not just like a part of what they like to say, what the conservative playbook or whatever they like to say? Do you think it was genuine?
I get you. You're talking about like talking points and stuff like that. Can I ask what things did he say that you were not sure about?
Well, let's just start with the whole idea of, first of all, his idea of how he looks at the poor. You know what I'm saying? If we go to Proverbs 19, it says that he who lendeth to the Lord, he who lendeth to the poor lends to the Lord. Now, I'm not saying just go ahead and give people handouts. I'm not just saying just give people willy-nilly, but it is a duty of someone that is Christ-like to look out for the poor. It
Right.
is one and have systems in place. Now, like when we talk about welfare, the welfare system, it's abused a lot. Let's go ahead and get that out the way. It's abused a lot, but to remove it completely without, I think it's more of a question of reformation rather than removing it completely, because you're looking out for the little guy. You know what I mean?
So I actually agreed with him on that. It should be 100% abolished, because
Okay.
I think the reason why I say that he was right is because it even boils down to when people say, when was America ever great? And I could actually, in some ways, I look at the 60s in some regard, because I've been made knowledgeable of how men and women in society should actually be, and the 60s is not actually how that should be, but that's a conversation for another day. But the amount of grace that people who went through adversity that they gave to their enemy was way higher. We were far more Christian. So even though we had a lot of segregation and there was a lot of crime, violent crime against Black Americans, there was still some grace from Black Americans to white Americans. And they were okay with choosing to separate themselves. And it wasn't out of malice or hatred. It was, one day they will see us as their equal. One day they will, but we will survive doing our thing, right? But when government came in, and I even said this to a friend of mine, I explained to her that, we were talking about the issues with Israel and all this, that, and the third, and a lot of things, because she's very Black power. And I had explained to her, like, honestly, I told her, I'm like, I think this is why MLK and JFK were killed. I think there is something about Black Americans that was so great that if shared with the rest of the country, America would have been unstoppable. There's this thing about Black America where you go through such adversity, slavery, segregation, lynchings, all these violent things, and yet you were on this trajectory of a civilization that would surpass the wealth of the whole nation combined. Why? Right? The way that Black Americans cling to God in the 60s, they didn't cling to anybody else but themselves and God. They had faith in their God and themselves and in their families. And if all of America had that sense of faith, because look at all the adversity, you overcame slavery, all these terrible things, and still nothing could stop you. Why is Black America not doing that today? And I would argue, because government replaced God for them for decades. And it wasn't just Blacks. It happened with whites too, and every kind of American, anyone who's on welfare. It removed their ability to have faith in Jesus, themselves. And there was acts of random kindness. There was far more acts of random kindness way back when than there is today, because it's like, oh, just get food stamps. Oh, just get this, that, and a third. No one has faith in their own ability anymore. No one has faith in Christ anymore. You want government to come in and save you, but your savior is Jesus. So where's your faith? In hard times, have faith in him, right? It's like your savior walks on water. Have faith in him. You'll be fine. But you have to take action. But if welfare says, well, you don't have to take action, you don't have to have faith in yourself, we got your back, we'll give you money. Well, then that's exactly the behavior that they're going to mimic. And so I think that's the premise and the context of Charlie Kirk's message. Sometimes when you're going back and forth with people, they don't actually want to hear the whole context, or there's not enough time to present the whole context. But honestly, I totally agree with him. How one abolishes it, though, that's the question. I wouldn't just say today the lights are on and tomorrow they're off. Right. That's not the way to do it. It will cause far more chaos than it cause solutions. But like, you got to put a time limit. Like, when the landlord wants you out, they give you 30 days to be evicted. They give you 30 days to get out. 30 days is enough. Get your together, and 30 days, you got it. So I think that's the way to go about it. But I totally agreed with him.
Okay, I understand the perspective and the context of why you agree with him. But I was going to
Yeah.
rewind it back to when you were just speaking on the 60s and the plights
Yeah.
of Black people of the 60s. I'll say let's go a little bit earlier than that with the establishment of Jim Crow.
Yeah.
Now, a lot of people say that Blacks had, and I even heard Charlie say this, that Blacks had a better, we were better before, right after slavery and right before the 1964 Act.
Yep.
Well, I would disagree on that note due to the anecdotal experience of my father. My father's from Mississippi, born 1954, grew up in the 60s.
Yeah.
And anytime I would have bring up some of these talking points during like any kind of political discussion, he was like, Josh, you weren't there. You know what I mean? The poverty that we faced, it was no joke. You know what I'm saying? And I know people like to say, why did we just give up our own to be a part of the whole be a part of the whole government or whatever. But my dad was saying it like this. He was saying, yes, Blacks, we had our own businesses, but there's a difference between having something and having something of quality. Like, let's just say Walmart, right? Milk lasts about 2 weeks. The white people that own Walmart, I'm just hypothetically.
Yeah.
People own Walmart, their milk is going to be, you feel me, 2 weeks. In a Black store, because we have to get secondhand resources, the milk you only got about 3 days, you know what I'm saying, or expired
Right,
food,
yeah.
and it was really hard for them. And so he said when Lyndon Baines Johnson signed in the whole, all of that, it was to help Blacks. And at first that's what it was. But with most things become tainted over time. Different
Right.
little things start getting involved, and it took civil rights and everything that we was working for, and it basically infected it with a lot of stuff that's not
With
supposed
something else.
to. Yeah. And so he was saying it was actually good, you know what I mean? Because it was like Blacks,
Right.
he says, not like how we think. Like, it's just, we want to be friends with white people. No, it wasn't that. It's also think about all the soldiers that fought in Vietnam and all the wars, came back, got hung in their own uniform. A whole bunch of stuff happened with that.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
believe, as far as getting back to the welfare thing, I totally agree with.
Yeah.
Now that you gave me the context of what you mean, like,
Yeah.
just don't get lazy. Basically, like
Yeah.
the system bred laziness. Yeah, I get that. That's what I said in the beginning. Like I said, yeah, I know it's abused a lot. You know what I mean? And that abuse has hurt
Yeah.
us as a people. I agree.
Yeah. I think it's a good thing to, like, I think even like just because he's passed, right?
Mhm.
It doesn't mean that a person all of a sudden, joins this collective group think with Charlie. Like, it's okay to disagree with him. And I think
Absolutely.
people should know that. Like, I had tremendous respect for him. And I swear he was like my champion. Like, if this were, if I was living in the Pokemon game and he was a Pokemon, he's the first one I'm choosing. Like, he's Pikachu handed on, like, on my shoulder. He's my go-to guy. There was just some things that he just understood about millennials that no one else got. And it was like, this is my guy, and I totally saw him running for president. Like, I didn't want JD Vance. I'm like, it's Charlie and Tucker Carlson in 2028. That's who I want. That's my ticket. Right. That's who I wanted. JD. Okay. So I think it's okay to disagree with him. Right. And when it comes to what you said your dad.
Yes, my father.
So it's like, that's the thing about policy, is that there's gonna be some good from it, right? Because these are the illusions that have to come along with nefarious policies. It's like even how we look at our economic system today. You have these leftists running around saying capitalism is bad, capitalism is this, but but it's like, well, we don't live in a capitalist society. We live in a cronyist society with the illusion of capitalism. It's why there are people who can succeed if they pull themselves up by the bootstraps, start a business, work hard at it, they get up in the morning, they do the job. This is why you can still succeed, but doesn't change the fact that the system is majority cronyist, right? And so you're looking at the, Society Act that came out in the 60s, and it's like, yeah, there had to be some benefits there. Some people did have to benefit. Now, I'd argue when it came to Blacks with the secondhand product that they would try to sell, this is where full independence comes into play, right? I mean, like, think about how our markets work now. If we buy stuff from out of the country and it takes 1,000 years to get to us, then whatever we're selling that's got the timestamp is definitely, that's not changing. But the amount of time my customer has with said product has shrunk. So if you're not independent in your resources, so if you had a farm or you connected with a Black farm, a Black ranch that had cows, you could have gotten milk locally and they would have had more time. Would it be more expensive? Yes, but independence isn't free. It costs time, blood, money. This is what freedom and independence cost. So it's really about just the choices a person makes. And the policy, no matter how much good came of it, the nefariousness doesn't go away, especially because this wasn't one of those policies where it was like good intentions paved the way to hell, kind of. It's like it wasn't one of those, right? Like when I look at the Genius Act, right, that Trump just signed into law, he did this law for him anyway, isn't nefarious from him, right? I know what he's trying to do with it. I completely understand what the purpose of that bill is. But good intentions still pave the way to hell. That's the Genius Act. The Great Society Act, all the way nefarious. But you got to give the illusion that you're being beneficial. But for the illusion to work, it's got to be beneficial, right? He knew that as time went on, LBJ knew that as the decades went on, that this is what it would do to Black America. He targeted Black America. And then you have these globalists who were like, it's not just about Blacks, it's about all America. We got to destroy all of America. This is why in the 70s, the focus switched from targeting Blacks to targeting women, because Blacks were choosing welfare, but it was the 70s that really broke Black America. It broke America. The 70s is that decade that just sent us down a trajectory of triflingness. You can see that was the decade where God was really there was a war in American society. God was like, there weren't politicians fighting for social and culturally. They weren't doing it. It stayed in politics. I lay a lot of that blame on the politicians for not focusing enough on culture. And that's why people like Candace Owens and Charlie Kirk thrive so much. That's why you're seeing the renewing, that you're seeing the revival that we're seeing now, because they're not shying away from the cultural spaces and the social spaces. They are calling out the policies as they're coming out and looking to the past. It's like they have to give the illusion of being beneficial. There are some policies that came out that were with good intentions, but paved the way to hell. And then there are just those policies that were just nefarious. I still believe the Society Act was that. But you still have to give the illusion that it's beneficial. But for that illusion to work, people have to benefit. So I understand that people experience things, even with my parents, right? Like my mom is, my parent, I won't say her age, but they're boomers. They remember when Kennedy was shot. Now you get how old she is.
Yes.
They were there. They benefited from, the Great Society Act. It didn't hurt their family, right? Because God was very much present. They used it when needed, as needed. If I don't need it, I'm not getting it. If I need it, I'll use it. That was always within the family. Only use these things if needed. But if you can do something about your circumstance without it, do it. Only if needed. That was always their mentality. So they always kind of looked at it that way, because God was very much in the home. Not to say that they didn't run into their own issues. I mean, obviously I wasn't there as my mother was growing up, and I don't really know what her life too much was like when she was in her 30s and her early 30s. I was a millennial born in the 90s, so she had me in her late 30s. But it was like the decisions made by families from the 60s to the, I would say, early mid 90s. You can see what Great Society Act has done, what the welfare state has done, and how it got worse, because it didn't just stop with Americans. You incentivize people to come here to get on it. Like, there was a nefarious thing about it. And because LBJ's was blinded so much of his hatred of Black people, he didn't even see, like, there was like this like bomb in there that he just did not see. I mean, it incentivized immigrants to come here and get on welfare. Didn't even pay
a bomb
attention
that
to
he
that.
did not see. That wouldn't he have had to be conscious of what he's doing for it to be the nefarious act that you're saying?
He was aware what it would do to Black Americans. That's why he said, I'll have these N-words voting for Democrats, for the next 100 years. I mean, he hated Black people. He looked down at he was a racist. There is no doubt in my mind that LBJ was a racist. But the policy incentivized immigrants to come into the country and get on welfare. This is why you start to see the demographic of America starting to change well within the late early 70s. I mean, Scarface is a perfect example. Scarface was not illegal. He wasn't illegal when he came into the country. You're starting to see more Hispanics come in. You're starting to see more other demographics come into this country, but they're getting on welfare. How is that? A lot of things changed in the 60s into the 70s. A lot of policies started to change in a lot of our markets. We opened up our markets, we opened up the welfare state, and I feel like they totally leveraged our Christianity to say, but this is us helping our neighbor. And we bought into that and we allowed it. We weren't paying attention to it. And people got so caught up in their, the clown show that is society. And they totally fell asleep. You had Republicans not paying attention to what was happening culturally. They were not paying attention to what was happening in schools. Fast forward to today. Now you got a bunch of atheistic, enlightened, radical progressives, a whole generation in debt, a dollar that has little to almost no value, and possibly World War III that people are okay with. I mean, how did you get here? It wasn't because the Christians had power in the 60s and 70s, because we wouldn't ended up here. Like, we have to pay attention to both the good intentions and the nefarious policies, because both can pave the way to hell. That's my personal opinion on those things.
Which makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense. You feel me?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going down a little list of things I wanted to ask you. Well, here's another thing. Me and a young man we were discussing. His name is Pablo. That's one of my boys. You know what I mean? We got back and forth about the whole Charlie Kirk death, and one of the things that came up was he racist? Now, the question I now ask you: do you believe he was racist, or some of the things he said came with a racist undertone, but didn't actually say it like you didn't say you N-words, but do you think that maybe there was some context of him actually being racist?
Not at all. Not at all. In fact, there are so many times, and this clip has been like trending. I don't know if it was TikTok or Instagram. I just know the clip was being shared on YouTube. There was a white nationalist. And let me be clear, just because someone says the word nationalist does not mean, violent person. But there was a white nationalist, and, he was a white supremacist. Again, does not mean violent person. But this guy was talking about the founding fathers. This was at a college campus where Charlie Kirk was doing a TPUSA event, and he came up and he was talking about how this guy believed that the founders did not envision this country to be a multicultural thing. And I would agree, they did not envision a multicultural thing. They expected a Christian society. But I do think when he went on to say that, it was meant for white people, Charlie got so enraged and so angry that usually he's respectful. I mean, he was respectful, but he puffed his chest out so quick and started yelling and screaming at this racist, because this guy was a racist. He was like, this is supposed to be a white country. That's it.
That's the one where he was on stage and he got out the seat to go
to tell this guy, get out. Like, you are not a part of the conservative. You are not conservative. This is not the conservative Christian movement. This is some radical far right white supremacist thinking, and you're not welcome here. Get out. Right. And it's like, but how could a man who reject the idea that this country was supposed to be this white supremacist country and be a racist? It's like the math don't math there. It doesn't make sense, So no, I don't think that he was a racist. I don't believe that at all.
Repeat that one more time. What you said prior to that. You said, how can you be racist and what?
Right. So I'm saying that how can you say, how can a man be a racist but condemn the action, the statements of a man who was a racist, right? Because he was being confronted by a racist, right? This white man said that America is supposed to be a white country. This is what the student was telling Charlie Kirk. And Charlie Kirk didn't just push back on it. He 100% rejected his ideology. And so my thing is, how can Charlie Kirk be a racist and reject the notion of a racist? That it doesn't make sense. You can be one or the other. And I believe, especially having seen that, I mean, I've seen, I've watched a lot of Charlie stuff. I've been to these TPUSA events, not where he's been doing speeches, but like one with Riley Gaines and stuff. But I don't believe that he was racist. I think people take offense. I think Black people just take offense, period. Because honestly, I say things and I'm called the race traitor. I'm like, you're taking offense to the truth. Like, it's not my fault that I'm calling you out for your bad behavior. You're mad when people call you out for your bad behavior. Charlie's better than I am. He at least tries to say it better and more eloquently, and I don't even care to mince words. And he's again a lot better than I am. He'll debate people on the left. I stopped doing that years ago. Years ago.
Okay, I understand what you're saying. I understand where you're coming from. I do disagree on, especially about how he went about saying stuff about the black community, because he was not being very. What's a good word for it? He was not being like mild-mannered with what he spoke. You know what I mean? He really did speak with a lot of vitriol in his voice. Now, I could show you a couple clips. You feel me? Because I brought them up. I believe, because I believe he was, because of some. Because let me ask you this, Asia. If let's just say you're well versed in statistics, right? But when you push out your narrative, you only leave in certain parts of the statistic and then leave out others. Wouldn't you say there must be a reason why they're doing that? And if they do leave out certain parts of the statistics, why did they do that? Especially the Trump.
I guess you can question their, I guess the word would be sincerity and their intentions. That was actually the perfect word, questioning their intentions. Like, why do that? I would definitely need to see the video, and in order to be able to really answer that question thoroughly, I guess is the right word.
Absolutely.
I think people want to focus in on certain data points, because it's like if the focus is on subtopic B, bringing up statistics that are related to the whole alphabet, it's not necessarily that it doesn't make sense, but it doesn't apply to B. So it makes sense when people only bring up the stats that relate to B. But again, I'd have to see the clip.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna go ahead and play the clip, and we're gonna have a little discussion about this afterwards. This is him talking about blacks commit 52% of all the murders and crime, and there's some interesting things that are being pointed out in this clip. I just wanted you to.
Gotcha.
Half of all prisoners are black.
Exactly.
So blacks commit more crimes than whites do. They commit more murders. They commit more arsons. They commit more kidnappings. For example, blacks are 13% of the population, and they commit 58% of all the murders.
Okay. Let's talk about it. These are obviously racist claims, but I will respond to them as if Charlie Kirk were a reasonable person.
Black Americans are about 13 to 14% of the population.
Yes,
but half of all prisoners are black.
Wrong. Just 38% of Americans.
I want you to look at these numbers, Asia. Just pay attention to a little bit of the numbers. I'm gonna continue to play the clip, but I think this is interesting. I'm taking
This prison population is black. That's according to the U.S. government. But it makes you wonder why Charlie feels the need to add an additional 12% to the black prison population. Could it be because his bigoted talking points only work if he exaggerates? If Charlie were actually looking for the race that makes up half the prison population in the U.S., he'd look no further than white people at 57%.
Exactly. So blacks commit more crimes than whites do.
Wrong. The word "so" is doing a lot of heavy lifting in that sentence.
So blacks commit more crimes.
He's saying so, as in therefore, as in one could conclude, but Charlie knows he's lying. Even if he hadn't just lied about the black prison population, Charlie is smart enough to know that correlation does not equal causation, but he's hoping that you don't know that. So he deploys the word "so" to make you think he's coming to an obvious conclusion.
Exactly. So black.
Instead, he's making an illogical, racist leap. Charlie knows that we don't have usable data about who commits crimes. It's impossible to have that data since so many crimes go both unreported and or unsolved. Charlie knows that we only have data about arrests and convictions. I'll come back to that data in a moment. What's painfully obvious is that Charlie Kirk isn't interested in understanding the statistics he so carelessly misquotes. He's interested in making bad faith arguments, something that becomes even more obvious in his next point.
Blacks are 13% of the population, and they commit 58% of all the murders.
Wrong again, and loud this time. If Charlie were interested in honesty, he would have mentioned the other 1350 statistic. Yes, black people are about 13% of the population, but make up 53% of all criminal exoneration.
So I gotta say this. So I watched the Jubilee. If you watch that full Jubilee interaction, you actually get the real stats. This gentleman is far more disingenuous. Charlie's right. Black people do commit more of the crimes. It wasn't a racist statement. It's true. We can sit here and we can, debate whether or not what he's saying is a lie or not, but I know that it isn't a lie. I mean, the way that this gentleman is trying to, question the stats and pulling up these data points, it's like, okay, if you watch the Jubilee, they actually do bring up the stats. If you look up the stats yourself, you do find, and it depends on what you're looking. I'm not even going to lie. It does beg the question, like, what was his sources? So I do trust the sources that I get from Turning Point. I mean, sources are going to be subjective, right? Because it's the person has to decide who they trust and who they don't. And trust is a subjective thing. You know, even data is, unfortunately, it is subjective, because if there's 1,000 different reports, then a person can believe one of the 1,000. How do you know that it's true or not? You can only trust the person or institution that puts the data out. So, you know, that in and of itself is subjective. But I would have to argue, I'm looking at when you look at Chicago, you look at New Jersey, you look at New York, you look in LA, you look in Philly, you look in a lot of these areas that are Black dominated. And yeah, it's a lot more Blacks. And this isn't to say that whites don't commit crime, that you're not going to see white prisoners, but let's call a spade. Who are committing the most of the violent crimes? Every other video that I'm seeing on my social media feed, it's Blacks. It's not whites. Now, I'm not saying again that whites don't commit crime, but this murder spree that Blacks seem to be committing, yeah, that's a Black issue. It's not that whites don't commit murder. It's that the most of it's coming from Blacks. Now, when it comes to the kidnapping thing that Charlie brought up, that I wasn't so sure about, because honestly, that just didn't seem like a Black person thing. Like, you know, like serial killing is not a Black person crime, right? It's like when you hear serial killer, you think white person. It is what it is, right? But when he said murders, when he said, you know, and robberies, violent thefts, yeah, these I think Black. I don't think white, and the stats do back up that a lot more of those crimes are definitely Black. The kidnapping thing, I was definitely skeptical of when I watched Jubilee. Even I was like, Charlie, I don't know about that one. That don't seem like Black people crime. You know, that it just doesn't. Like, I don't hear that many stories of Black people kidnapping women and children. It's not that it don't happen. It's just that don't seem like Black crime.
Right. And I'll say this. Well, three things. Number one, I'm going to address the 52%. Though that is true that a lot of Blacks, like, we do commit a lot of murder. One thing that he left out is, unfortunately, that murder happens within our own community, kind of. And I know that sounds messed up to say, but it does. But him claiming it as if it's a problem with the whole nation is what it is, where I have an issue with. Then he goes on to say that white people are living. How did he put it? He says white people basically live in fear that Blacks might do something to them. I'm kind of paraphrasing a little bit, and that's actually disingenuous, because most of the time we're not even proximity of most white people. Now, there might be a football game where people might get into it or something like that, but most of the violence, unfortunately, is amongst each other. But see, it's that little stuff like that, Asia, that I don't like. If the stats are 100% accurate, you don't have to add in little caveats to try to make the point. And that's what leads people to say you're racist. Like, why put extra on top of it?
So I think he was legitimate. I think white people are afraid that Black people are going to do something. I mean, Black people are racist today, right? I mean, they are afraid of vengeance. That like, it's legitimate, right? It's a legitimate claim. It's not so much.
Do you think that maybe the history actually has a part to deal with that, as well as the fact that I know a lot of white people like to throw rocks and hide their hand too? You know what I'm saying? Racism just didn't disappear because.
Oh yeah, no, it's not that racism didn't go away, but Blacks today aren't victims of racism.
We're not victims of racism.
So I think, you know, whites are under siege, right? Whether it's jobs, you know, whether it's society at large, when they go to campuses, they're being, you know, lambasted. They're being attacked verbally, sometimes physical assaults. We're seeing white people being attacked left and right by Black people, like Black men. Like, there were, like, how many videos have we seen of white women just getting pummeled and beat up? There was this white couple that got their asses kicked by a group of Black people, right? Like, it was the Doge kid in Washington D.C. got jumped by a bunch of Black kids, right? A couple of the shootings that we saw in D.C. You know, a white off-duty cop in Washington, D.C. gets killed by gets shot by a Black guy. Like, these are Black people shooting whites. Now, it's one of two things. Either you're targeting them because they're white, or you're targeting them because they got something that you just want, whether it's something of luxury, right? Like a car, maybe they got money on them. Like, it could just be a cliche, you know, this is just about the money, got nothing to do with your race. That's plausible. but it does not mean that whites don't have a legitimacy to their fear. Now, I don't think they should be running around all paranoid, but I think Charlie's speaking on the fact that whites are terrified. They're terrified of vengeance of something that they are not guilty of, right? It's like blacks are running around here all, oh, woe is me, slavery, oh, woe is me, Jim Crow,
right,
segregation, but you weren't victims of it. Now, it's not to say that you forget what happened, but you're not victims of it. So why are you holding whites today accountable for 40, 50, 100 years ago? They're not guilty, but you want vengeance. They want slavery again. Blacks want slavery. Slavery is bad when it's for blacks, but they are okay seeing whites in shackles. They are okay seeing whites being denied. They are okay with that. And that's just the reality we live in.
Well, two things, and I want to comment on what you said about the slavery and Jim Crow and how we're not victims of it today. Now, see, on the surface, it looks that way, but there is a book that I was reading called The Moynihan Report. Are you familiar with Daniel Patrick Moynihan?
No, I'm not.
Well, he was a white man that wrote a book in the 70s, or no, late 60s, actually talking about the stuff we were just talking about, the welfare, Jim Crow, and he even brought up slavery. And he said an interesting fact about slavery was that there were not only brutal conditions in which we had to survive as blacks, but there was psychological damage done too that was never fixed. It's like having an open wound and you just think, oh, it'll just go away. You know what I mean? It never goes away. It's just going to exponentially get worse. Now, I'm not saying we should play victim, but to act as if those psychological effects did not pass on it's I mean, that would be like,
right.
It almost be.
I think the wound. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, then during Jim Crow, even when black people tried to stick to ourselves, 300 black cities, including one in my state called Allensworth Park, they're basically black cities, burned to the ground. And this is black people minding their own business. These things we may not experience today, but that would be undermining what my grandfather went through and my father went through, for me, because we're descendants of them. And I'm just only honoring their struggle by not playing a victim, but you can't just erase the history like it just doesn't.
It's not about erasing the history. I think, what's the way to put this? There's a perfect example. There's a perfect example. When I was it's an analogy. I'm trying to keep it as short as possible, but it's the best way I can really describe it. When I was a kid, me and my twin, we were like playing around or something. She like shoved me a little bit, and I went to brace my fall. Now, my dad had some like equipment sitting on the couch, and my thumb had like, it slid down this like sharp blade thing that was in the box. It like slid down when I went to catch my fall. Luckily enough, it didn't need stitches, but it was such a deep scar that to this day, I have it. I got that scar when I was 11. I'm 30. So it's still there. It's healed, but I can still see it. It's healed. But I remember when I got it. I remember what happened. I know, don't brace your fall. If you're going to do it, you need to do some kind of a weird maneuver so you don't fall on a blade ever again, right? It's like, I know better now. I think slavery, Jim Crow, and all of the bad actions that our government committed against Black Americans, it was terrible, violent, and there should have been some rectification. I think when it came to these conversations about reparations, I think the only good conversation that came out of that was when they actually sat down with the people of Tulsa? And there was a 99, I think she was like 92-year-old woman. She deserved everything that they gave her, because she was alive when it happened. She was a victim of that. This is the state paying restitution, not reparations, because she was an actual victim. But for all the Black Americans today to be all, oh yeah, we got to get ours too. No, she got restitution because it was taken from her. Today, nothing was taken from you. Now, this isn't that you forget. Like, I have family members who grew up that way. I mean, I had an uncle and an aunt who went to visit in the South when they were kids, and they were chased out by the KKK. They had to put their asses back on a bus back to New York because they did not know how to behave in the South. And this is when they were kids. So if this is just from my mother's siblings, when I know what happened to them, I know what they faced. My mom did face discrimination because she was Black and because she was a woman in the workforce. This tells I need to be 10 times more grateful for having been born with all of my rights. I can't play victim when literally my mother and her siblings faced real adversity. I have no reason to be claiming, victimhood. She was discriminated against. They were dealing with segregation. They dealt with the KKK, like literally dealt with the KKK. This wasn't just some story in a textbook for
Of course
for me,
not. Like I told you,
right? Right, exactly. So, but the best way to honor them is to acknowledge that the wound has healed. The scar will never go away. It will be there. Acknowledge the wound. And that's what Americans are trying to do collectively, right? It's like whites acknowledge the wound is there, but it's not enough for the collective of Blacks. It's not enough for them to acknowledge the wound. No, we have to wound you. Why is it wrong when he says that? Why is it wrong when Charlie says that Blacks are committing all these crimes, but leaves out, they're doing it to themselves? Could it possibly just be that he looks at the victims of Black criminals as just Americans? He doesn't look at it as Black on Black crime. He's looking at the Black criminal as Black for the data point. But the victims he's not looking at as Black. I think he's looking at them like these are the crimes being committed by Blacks. And he's looking at these victims just as other Americans. He's not looking at race. Why is it not? I think it's enough for them to acknowledge that the wound was there, that the wound is here. But we don't have to rip it open and then put it on white people to be subjected to the very crimes we're running around here saying I'm still a victim of. That don't make no sense. The math don't math. And Blacks need to get a grip.
I agree with you to the extent of continuing to rely on racism as a talking point to try to point fingers at whites. I do agree with that. But to get back to what I said about Charlie Kirk leaving something out, I wasn't leaving out the fact that they were Black. He leaves out the other facts, like it showed you the statistic. It says 55% of all Blacks that get exonerated are Black people. Blacks and whites do not get convicted at the same rate. I'll even give you an example. What's that boy? I think his name was.
Could it just be because there are more Blacks being arrested at a certain moment in time than whites? Like if I'm looking at a metric of 1 year, could more Blacks just be getting arrested than whites? Therefore, more exonerations is going to happen of one demographic than the other.
But there's also a lot of them get falsely convicted too. That's the things being left out.
Right, those the plea deals that we're seeing happening. People just saying, "I'll take the guilty plea because it's either less time or it just means I get a guilty plea, but I don't have to go do jail time. But we count the conviction."
And usually those are called, especially in the jail system, it's called public defenders or not public defenders. Yeah,
I know what you mean. It's like
exactly.
It's like they're offering those plea bargains
exactly.
to Blacks.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, like I'm trying to use the example of there's two young men. One was named Carmelo Anthony about 6 months ago. I think that case
really pissed me off, bro.
Explain.
Because his victim was a twin and he died in his twin brother's arms. I'm a twin. Now I am a pro-life person, but I could not be objective there. I don't like the death penalty because I'm pro-life. But the fact that the victim was a twin and died in his twin brother's arms, I couldn't even be objective. I was like, I want the death penalty. Hell, I still want the death penalty. And this is me being a hypocrite because I'm a pro-life person, and that does mean no death penalty. But I'm really mad about the Carmelo Anthony case. I was furious, and still this day, I want the death penalty for Carmelo.
So you feel he should get the death penalty?
Yeah, I can't even be objective. It's not right. What I'm saying, like, let me be clear, it's not right because I'm pro-life. So he was also attacked though too. You get what I'm saying? So I'm not saying that he wasn't, like he got shoved by another kid. This should have been some, like just regular teen aggression fight just breaks out. Like that's what it should have just been that he shoved you, boy, dude, get from under my tent.
Right, but see,
Like,
with a fight, you never know how a fight's really going to end. Just be
still,
well, I
but
said
why
we
pull
also
a
be
knife
lucky
out?
that
Like,
we get
just
out.
beat the hell out of each other, like your boys. Like, he was a big guy, Carmelo's a big guy, beat the hell out of each other, and then everybody just gets suspended for a week. Why wasn't it that?
I mean,
Like,
we're
that's
asking
what
the
it should have
question in
been.
hindsight, but I mean, I'm just saying when it comes to violence, I mean, you think you can never see how far someone's going to go with violence. You know what I'm saying?
Yep,
It's
he
like,
shouldn't have pulled the knife out. There was no need to pull a knife out. This was not a reasonable killing. It was not self-defense. In order for him to claim self-defense, you have to really believe that your life was at risk. Getting shoved from under the tent is not reasonable enough. It does not justify pulling a knife out and stabbing him in the heart. It doesn't justify it. How is your life at risk? Because he shoved you from under the tent, selling "Get the out of my tent." That's not justifiable. He put his hands on you, so punch his ass in the face. Excuse my French, but
no, I
punch him.
get what you're saying.
Like,
but that,
why
I
pull the
get what
knife
you're
out?
saying. All right.
Like, you didn't have to do that. Just
Yeah,
punch
like
him,
I wouldn't
call it a
personally have
day.
handled it that way. Like I personally wouldn't have it. We just would have had a little squabble outside, and
Everybody would have been suspended. That's how that would have gone.
Right. Okay, for sure. Like I said, I respect your
Yeah, but
opinion. You feel me? I respect what you say. You know what I mean?
that case, man.
Shout out to Wiz in the comment section. Thanks for church.
Yo, what's up, Wiz?
Hmm?
I was telling Wiz, what's up?
Yeah, but for sure. Because let me think. We're getting up to that 1 hour mark, and I promise I wasn't gonna keep you too long.
Yeah, I got you like a good another 20, 30 minutes if you have the time for it.
Okay, and I'm gonna get into now. We're finishing up on the Charlie Kirk, so okay, I guess we'll go get right into it. What Tupac and Donald Trump have in common. That's the name of the show. That's
Tupac
and I think this is going to be a very interesting take. First of all, tell me what your thoughts on Pac is. What do you know about him? Knowledgeable facts that you know about.
I just know I just know some of his music. I know he did some movies. I know he didn't really trust the institutions any more than conservatives today don't trust the institutions.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't tell you what he had in common with Donald Trump. I don't know much about Tupac other than the fact that he was a musician, didn't trust the institutions, totally wasn't sure how he felt about the music industry. Like, it gave him an opportunity, but he still didn't trust it. Almost like sort of like a Kanye kind of thing. Like,
Yes.
You're using it to have this to get the success, but you also don't trust it. But with the exception of those things, it's like I didn't know much about Pac. I don't really care for his music. I know he was talented, and I know that rappers today aren't as talented as he was. That I can't say he was the GOAT because I don't really listen to hip hop like that. But
Okay.
I just know I wish we had more artists like him. At least he was good. What we have today is crap. But that's all I can really say about Tupac.
Okay. Well, it's funny because where I believe Tupac and Donald Trump have a lot in common is a quote, a phrase that everybody keeps saying when it comes to both of them. You feel me? Whether you're a fan of Pac or a supporter of Trump, first of all, both of them were outspoken. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they spoke to the system against whatever the system was going to say back. They weren't afraid of criticism. They exercised freedom of speech. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And one phrase that I know is between both of them is they're misunderstood. Like, you'll hear MAGA supporters say that about Trump. You'll hear Tupac's fans say that about him, because a lot of times they speak with a certain level of aggression that sensitive people will take and and personalize it. Oh, I can't believe Tupac said that, or he said this and that, or Donald Trump, I can't believe he said grab him by this and everybody.
It's funny that you say that, because I actually, when I was making my clip, you got to clone voices. I had to pick a clip where he really could articulate himself, not necessarily speak properly, but really get him talking for like a good 30 seconds straight. And everything he was saying about the institution, about was it the music industry? It was either the music industry or the government, one or the other, but who knows? Because sometimes they're like one and the same, right? Mm-hmm. But he was very articulate, and I completely agreed with everything that he was saying. Not how he was saying it. He did apologize for his language, which I appreciated. But I totally agreed with him when he was talking about it, when I had to clone his voice to do my whole video. But it's funny that you say that, how it's like, yeah, they are outspoken. They can be misunderstood. But it's like, it's funny how a man says what he said before he dies. Fast forward, 20, 30, maybe 40 years later. And a lot of people on the conservative side actually agree with a lot of the things that he said. We don't like his music, but a lot of things he said.
Right. Very intelligent brother. Yeah. And and that's the things that I'll say, that they're very very similar. And then I heard what, in fact, Candace someone said, and in fact, your sister even said this, where they said that he was a criminal because it's funny because Tupac he found himself in some trouble sometimes, but I say let he without saying cast that first stone, you know what I mean? But I'll say this though, it's funny because they both got in trouble for the same thing, but they were both
I guess you say like not necessarily vindicated, but another word for it.
Yeah. But I was just gonna say they both faced charges with what was it, sexual assault or whatever, right? I said that's another thing because they also showed how messed up the system was, especially when, like in Tupac's case, they had all the evidence showing that he didn't do it, but on the strength of her word, they put him in jail. Same thing with Trump and not Stormy Daniels, but whenever
it was another woman, he's appealing that one because I don't because it wasn't a criminal case, it was a civil case because she was given like millions of dollars, $25 million, and he's appealing that. I don't think it was a criminal case, not that particular case. That was just one of the cases that was trying to make him bankrupt. When it comes to Tupac, to be quite honest with you, I don't think that was, and I'm not even gonna to your viewers who are Zionist or whatever, they may take offense to this, but I don't think it was white America that went after Tupac. Like, he was saying way too much that was not necessarily targeting the institution as blacks assumed that it was. I mean, having been in the music industry, knowing who has most of the ownership of studios out there, knowing how they are intertwined with policy, government, the justice system. Yeah, I think it wasn't like this cliche white black politic judicial issue with Tupac. I think it was something totally different, something totally much more nefarious. And I don't believe it had absolutely anything to do with, the justice system targeting him because he was a black man, the way I think a lot of people assumed at that point. Like, I even have...
Oh, no, it wasn't about him being a black man. It was about the power that a black man had at that time, being from where he was from.
But it wasn't it wasn't the white man that feared the power that he had, though. That's what I'm saying, right? It's like, I don't believe it was because the white man had fear of him. I don't think that. I think it was something totally different. I won't go into specifics right now, but another time, conversation for another day.
Fair.
But let me just say, I think it leans more. It could offend any viewers of yours that are Zionistic or Jewish, because again, conversation for another day. It will definitely offend.
And trust me, we will have that because that's a very I like
because it wasn't the white man.
But to give you some of Tupac's origins, or why I say it does have something to do with the system, is because if you knew his background, his parents were Black Panthers. You know what I mean? And in fact,
they were Black Panthers.
His parents were Black Panthers, yes.
Yeah, I think they were a domestic terrorist group.
Okay, that's your opinion, but at the end of the day, his family is well known in the Panther Party from the East Coast to the West Coast. What's the word I'm looking for? Basically his family was big in the Black Panther Party, nonetheless. Right. And he did have a problem with the system, and he constantly spoke out about the system. Now, he wasn't talking about the white man because he had a lot of white fans. Yeah. But I'm thinking more specific, the 1%, or like how you said, the Jews who own most of the music industry and most of Hollywood, period. You know what I mean? He did get into it a lot from a political standpoint as far as standing for his people. A lot of things that Pac said, he may not always said it the right way, going back to what they relate to what the Donald Trump thing. He may not say it the way people think he should have said it, but he definitely spoke truth to power on a lot of things that blacks were facing. So,
I would agree to some degree. And perhaps it was society kind of like mirroring art at this point, because that was the why behind the clip. But like I have this thing where I like to create these animated podcasts. And
I think I've seen it before too. I think
I was having a good old time. I had like this whole rundown. I think the first one was with Tupac. The next episode was with I think Martin Luther King, and the next episode was with Joan Rivers. There's like this whole meticulous process that I have to do because I became an AI generalist, and so I was learning how to use these tools, and I was having such a good time. But Tupac wasn't even supposed to be the first one. It was going to be somebody else. I think I was going to have him sit down with like Reagan or somebody. But then the Carmelo Anthony case happened, and it was such that case. I mean, like I said, it infuriated me, but it stunned a lot of conservatives, not because it was black versus white in this case, but it was really because we conservatives have this thing. We say this thing. If you have a 2-parent household and you live in a stable community, you should have every opportunity to move forward, right? Like Obama said it, conservatives say it. So how does a young man who's got a 2-parent household, lives in a good neighborhood, his parents are financially doing well, you go to a good school, how does he turn into this violent murderer? How did that happen? When even the conservatives say, if you have what he had, you should turn out great. 9 chances out of 10, you turn out great. What was the thing that made him become a violent murderer? And then you look at his social media, and he's 100% emulating the violence that we're seeing in black culture.
I agree with
right?
that. I agree with that.
And that's why I had Tupac on the animated show that I did, the Afterlife Sessions, where it was like Tupac may have been talking about, like, he was talking about what was happening for him, but my character Silas was saying, but do you not see the correlation between hip hop and what it did to this young man, black culture, and what it did to this young man? Because we conservatives say he should have been successful. He was 17. He should have had a great life. And yet he became a violent murderer. What happened? It's the hip hop culture. It's black culture. And Tupac, honestly, I would say, has the throne. I don't look at Jay-Z as that. I definitely don't look at Diddy for that. No one today has his talent. Tupac was really the most honest one. You know, Kendrick Lamar could have come close, but, you know, they got he. He's Gotti. They got him. Like, it's not, his music is just not what it was when I first heard him. Maybe Jadena could have been, you know, throne adjacent. I say throne adjacent because he was never going to be Tupac, but let's call a spade. He was almost there, but then Gotti, you know, you were all playing this part. And honestly, I think, you know, Tupac could have, if they didn't kill him, and I'll leave it at the infamous they, I think his music would have changed. I think his music would have been much better, acknowledging the hardships of blacks, but letting black men know you don't got to be a thug. You don't got to do this. You don't got to be that. Stop faking like you are. Stop pretending that you are. I mean, if he lived, he'd probably be like, what, 50 something, 60 years old?
About 50.
Right. He'd be looking at these young black men like, why are you faking it? Why are you pretending? Why are you throwing up the gangster signs? Why are you not taking advantage? I feel like Tupac today would be like, oh, this freaking technology, you can't figure out your life, but you want to sell dope. Why? You didn't live how we live. You don't have to be this way. You don't have to do that. It's one thing when you're talking about what was, but obviously I made that conversation about black culture today and what it's doing. It's a virus. And I think it was important for that conversation to be had. And I felt like the king of that genre should be the one to have the conversation. Because honestly, nobody else got the throne. My personal opinion. It's an empty seat.
I 100% agree with you on that. I do 100%. I was just going to say this though. In a perfect world, coming from a 2-parent home, coming from a good neighborhood, coming from all these good things that could benefit you better in life, everything is never. I said never. Everything is not always 100% one way. You know what I'm saying? There's different caveats to life. We don't know what was going on behind.
Touche. There could have been abuse. There could have been, you know.
There's a lot of things that can
the
drive
parents
someone.
Of the Menendez brothers. Who knows?
You see,
yeah.
good
but in
point.
his case, but in his case, it's like, you know. I mean, I'm having issues with his parents right now. I think they're not doing good for their son. It's like by trying to paint this lie that he committed self-defense, and it's like, no, you need to be there for your son spiritually, because right now a lot of people in this country want him put to death, even people who are pro-life. I mean, myself. You need to be there for your son. You need to tell him to tell the truth, that you need to repent for what you have done. The only deal we're going to get for you is life. You know, maybe with the chance of, you know, parole at the end of this, but they should have been there for him. And I think by trying to monetize off of his violent actions, I mean, when you say we don't know what was behind the scenes and what else could have been driving him, I'm like, well, maybe his parents were, you know, sugar honey iced tea. Maybe, you know, if he's got parents that are going to monetize off of him committing murder, then maybe they aren't as Christian as they pretend to be. Maybe they aren't great parents as they pretend to be. You know, maybe them not being there is why he was usurped by Black violent culture anyway,
right?
Because you weren't there. I mean, this music was here when I was growing up. Like, I'm 30. Like, this music was here, you know, but I had a deacon in the house. You know, my mom had me listening to a bunch of Yolanda Adams. My sister and I used to run down the stairs and my mom would put on Shirley Caesar because it was like her favorite song. You know, my lullaby was a CeCe Winans song. She sang it every night. You know, I grew up listening to Stephanie Mills and Anita Baker. And it's not that there weren't ever songs that weren't vulgar or raunchy. And I do have older siblings. You know, my brother is 11 years older than me. He would share with us hip hop and some television shows our mother was not happy with, some video games our mother was not happy with. And then she would counter it right away. Like, you got them watching South Park. We're watching The Thin Man. This was an old television show. Or, you know, you got them playing this Grand Theft Auto. We're watching something else, right? You got them listening to Jay-Z, putting on Yolanda Adams. There was a counter to it right when we were exposed to it. And if his parents weren't doing that for him, then perhaps, yeah, maybe his parents just sucked. Culture raised him, and that's why he became what he became. Now, this was the moment for them to step up, and they totally didn't. And like I said, I think hip-hop has some serious soul searching that they need to do. And I don't just put it on hip hop. I mean, I look at all of Hollywood altogether. I mean, I look at the writers from Dexter. I think I'm so angry with them for having brought it back. There was this young kid who murdered his younger brother just to see if he could do it because he watched Dexter. And these writers took no accountability for it. They just said, oh, it's the parents' fault for letting their son watch it. And it's like, yeah, you're right. They weren't there. And their son did watch this crap. And he did become susceptible. And a spirit did hop on him to the point where he did murder his younger brother. But where's your accountability for putting this out there? Do you have no accountability, no responsibility to what you put in social fabric of society? 30 years from now, are we really going to look back and say one of the greatest television shows was Dexter, that the cultural impact that it had was to sensationalize serial killing? No accountability on them. And this is why I'm loving watching them collapse, watching Hollywood collapse. Like, hip hop is taking a huge hit. Film is taking a huge hit. Television is taking a huge hit. And I'm glad, because it's time for the twilight. And it's like the new gods are dying. The new gods are dying. It's done. Queen Bee on the way out. Let's call a spade. She's what? 50? Almost 50?
Who you said?
Beyonce, Queen
Bee.
Oh,
yeah. She's about 40 something. Yeah, 42.
Yeah, she's like my older sister's age. So my older sister, one of my older sisters, like 44, 45. I think she turns 45 in like a few weeks. Who wants to see a 55, 60-year-old woman twerking on a stage? Yeah, no one. The new gods are dying. They're done. And I'm loving seeing it happen. The revival that's happening, the twilight has come. This is it. And you're either on board with moving forward, or you can stay stuck. One of the beautiful things that I have been seeing is a lot of Black Americans, like, I think seeing Charlie be murdered, because they had their issues with white people, and I think they'll still have their issues. I think they're willing to have a conversation finally. I think they're really ready to hold their own community accountable finally. Because it's like, if I've been on the side of death for this entire time, then maybe I wasn't the good guy. And I'm seeing a lot of that from Black America, which makes me so happy, because for the longest time, I refused to identify as Black. I'm like, nope. If this were the 60s, I'd have no problem with it. But Black today means ratchet, pregnant as a teenager, you speak Ebonics.
I can understand.
And when I have to fill out paperwork and it says race, I check other and write in Christian. Like, if Jewish is a race now, then so is Christianity. Like, I'm a Christian. That's what it is. I'm a Christian who appears Black. That's just what I say to people. Because I refuse to lump myself in with that community. I mean, honestly, when people see me walking down the street, because I'm such an Oreo and how I dress and how I carry myself, no white person is afraid of me. They don't look at me like I'm one of these typical Black people. Like, no, you don't. I don't look typically Black. Because when you think typically Black, you think sagging pants, you think tight, short skirts, you think can't speak English, you think she's wearing a bonnet to the store, you think he's a thug, you think she's a hoe. Conversation for another day. Right. But ultimately, I'm like, yeah, no one thinks of me that way. You can look at me a mile away and think Carlton. You know, I mean, that's just always been me. But I'm liking what I'm seeing within Black America. Like there's a shift happening there. And it's not because of the church. It took the murder, the political assassination of a man that they thought was racist for them to be like, whoa, okay, so I think he was a racist. But,
At least it sparked the conversation.
And now they're watching more of his words. They're getting the context. They're listening to what Charlie really said. And he's like, you know what? I don't think he was a racist. I mean, he could have said it better, but I don't think he was a racist. I think he genuinely cared about Black people. I think he really cares. Like maybe they were wrong. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe I should have a conversation with white people. Maybe I shouldn't blame them for what happened. Maybe I'm not a victim. Seeing that has been great. And honestly, I think when people hop off of social media and you see it in the world, it's like, yeah, I think social media definitely made the microcosm look bigger than it is. In a lot of ways, I think the left is just that those numbers are just legit. But I think there's a lot more Blacks that are saying to themselves, maybe we were the wrong ones and maybe I should actually hear white people out. But at the same time, Black people need to tell white liberals, enough with your white guilt because you're doing more harm than good. Like, it's okay for Blacks to tell white people that because I'm sick of the white guilt. Those liberals are getting on my nerves.
For sure.
Yeah.
No, I definitely agree with some of the things you said. I really do. I think there is a conversation that's starting to gather us all together to actually
and it's
put an end to some of these. Yeah. Because here's me personally, Asia. I had to go down, be not diplomatic, but I had to try to speak from both sides. But me, my personal opinion, I never go around blaming white people for everything. You know what I mean? Because I said, like you said, you're right. There's no point in actually going back to try to talk about Jim Crow. I didn't live through Jim Crow. I heard the stories. But there's no point in living. But I also remember what my father said. Just don't completely rule it out like it's just
word. Like remember, because if the second you forget it, it can happen again.
So that's where I stand on. I don't blame white people, but I always keep my eyes peeled because I mean that's the only way to always live is to keep your head on the swivel. Another thing is with Charlie Kirk. Me personally, before I started seeing some of these clips about the Black community, I actually used to support his show. I used to watch Turning Point USA. Him, Ben Shapiro, I think he was part of it.
Candace. Yeah, you don't gotta watch Ben Shapiro no more, though. You don't gotta watch him.
No, I kind of fell out with him too. I told you I fell out with kind of a few conservative podcasts. And Charlie was one of them, you know. But I used to but I still respected him. You know what I mean? Like I told you from the beginning, I didn't wish nothing on Charlie. I just had my disagreements. That's it. I don't agree with anybody 100%. You know what I mean? But yeah, I never wished for anything to happen bad to Charlie. I was disappointed in the Black church because regardless of their decline, you're always supposed to stick to the morals of the Bible, and you're never supposed to wish death and celebrate now. Yeah. And I told you my take on the Pac thing. Yeah. So
I feel like like I do think it's like I said, it's definitely okay to disagree with him even though he's gone. I'm let me tell you the truth. You know, it's a huge part of the reason why I even slowed down doing my podcast. I got so tired of talking about politics and the cultural issues, like seeing what was happening with Blacks and watching the thuggery and, you know, the celebration of just bad behavior. I was like, if this is what I'm going to be doing, talking about it, like I can't, it's like really bringing my spirit down. So I literally took a step back and I like really jumped all the way into just skill building and, you know, learning how to do like AI and stuff and just having a good time learning that and helping friends and family members like start businesses with it. And when Charlie died, I felt like, all right, I can't not speak about it. But with that said, I'm very wary about who I'm going to listen to. I mean, before Charlie died, I stopped listening to Ben Shapiro, but I wasn't really watching a lot of these political shows that much anyway. Right. It's because I'm going to find out what's happening in my Twitter feed or on Instagram or on TikTok or what have you. I'll find out what's up and I'll watch when I need to watch. But I wasn't going to be watching all of the time. Some exchanges I didn't mind. You know, I stopped watching Megyn Kelly, you know, not because I don't like her. I have a lot of respect for Megyn Kelly. In fact, I'm quite grateful to her. Had it not been for Megyn, I don't think I would have gone on my red pill journey. Had she not asked that infamous question at the first debate, right, about women. And it's like, if it wasn't for that question, I wouldn't have started my red pill. So, but I stopped watching her podcast, though, because there were so many things that she was saying that I just could not get on board with. Where it was like, yo, I got to stop watching you because it's making me not like you. So I'm going to stop. I'll tune in when I think necessary. And I did the same thing with Charlie Kirk show, because again, there were some things that he says that I didn't agree with. I just don't agree with anybody who just, the way that they were with Israel, the way that they were with Ukraine, the way that they are with the idea that America's role is to be everybody's savior. And it's like, that's not the role of America. That's Jesus. Stop trying to put
Right.
us in Jesus's throne. That's just not what it is. Stop that. So I stopped watching Charlie Kirk as well. Really because of his own take. It's like, you can't be America first, but then tell Americans that we got to pay to save the world. Not our role. So I stopped listening. Again, you're going to disagree, and that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think that listening to the people listening for full context as opposed to listening to respond is the first step. I think understanding why a person frames something the way that they do, that's definitely important as well. Like really knowing their heart and knowing that he was this evangelical Christian. It's not with malice intent, or that he's trying to, in a way, shape a narrative. No matter what it is that he's talking about, it's not about shaping a narrative. He always wants to be proven wrong, because there are times where I've seen his mind change. And so it's like a man who is willing, right? Because as far as Charlie was concerned, common ground was sacred ground for him. And this is why he always wanted to have communication with people. And the same thing with Tupac, right? He was the guy, like, I believe that he was the kind of man who wanted to have conversation, to talk it out, to find that common ground, because again, common ground is sacred ground. You could disagree, but the fact that you were willing to come meet me and have this conversation, right? Like, those are things that we should value. And honestly, to see the revival happening, to see what the shift happening in the spirit of Black America, and I'm not shocked that the Black church didn't play a role in it, but I'm kind of okay watching them collapse and seeing Christ kind of make its way into the social fabric again, and into society, Main Street, if you will, because it was shoved into a church and out of schools, out of our social construct, and now it's making its way back in full force. And I think a lot of that is definitely because of the death of Charlie. And I'm like, I don't want it to come off harsh, but I'm grateful for what his death has brought, if that makes sense.
No, I ultimately understand the concept of what you're saying.
Yeah.
Okay, Asia. Thank you so much for joining me. I really enjoyed our discussion. You feel me?
Yeah,
I would love
I
to
had
have
fun.
you on more. And I was talking about this tonight, but I'm really shifting. Like I told you earlier, the direction of this channel to talk more about godly positions on either whether it's things going on in the world, or if you just want to go over scriptures, like
that would be really good, because I'm no expert in scripture. The Bible that I have, it's not the type of Bible that I think is the one that I need. I mean, you should have a Bible in your home and you should go through the scripture. But it seems very like it feels like a contemporary interpretation, not necessarily scripture. And I'm open to learning scripture, because again, I haven't found a church down here. I refuse to do a Baptist church. I'm not really, I've tried the Protestant ones, but those are very contemporary for my likings, when it comes to the music and the way that they, express their love of Christ. I'm like, yo, you young people, not even young people, because they're my age too, but the way they're like dancing and jumping, like you thought they were at a concert, and it's great, but it's not for me. So getting to know the scripture, like I would love to just come on and just learn, because it's not, I really couldn't even offer any kind of a teaching for it, right? It's literally, I'm just here to learn about it and ask questions about the scripture to better understand it. Like that's really, I would love to be a part of that in some way. Can't promise you every week or things like that, because between work and what I'm trying to build on the side, but whenever I can, I'm here, man.
Okay, appreciate you so much.
Thank you so
one more
much.
thing, I had a couple people in the comment section. His name was Call Me Wiz. He said you were very smart and he enjoyed your conversation. So I don't know if you're still in there, bro, but do you have a page or something, like a new YouTube channel or something?
So I do. Right now it's called America First AI. I'm doing some rebranding for the old channel that I used to have. But honestly, the best way for people to reach me, like hit me up in my DMs, look for Asia Branch. They can find me on like a Facebook page. It is called America First AI. I do have an Instagram, again, called America First AI. But yeah, hitting me up in the DMs is like the best thing. So if people wanted to reach out, if they want to just ask me questions, posting on the America First page, getting in the comment section. I can put the links in here in the chat. So if people were interested, let me see if I can. I think the best one, like I said, would probably be Instagram, I would say. Because I actually get in the DMs for that one. So it's like,
or send it in my messenger, because I know my messengers. Yeah, just put the links in my messenger and I'll shoot it to my friend.
Oh, that would be great. Yeah, that'd be a lot easier. Because trying to pull them up right now is like, it's gonna take some time. Yeah.
For sure. But thank you so much, Asia. I appreciate your time. I even learned a few things from you today, and that's what I'm all about: growth. We were talking about the Black community. I believe more of these conversations need to be happening so that we can actually grow together as a people. I agree 100%.
Ditto. You actually gave me a new perspective on Tupac. It definitely helped shape some of the things when it came to Tupac. So that was actually really enlightening. This was fun. Thank you so much for having me on, man.
Oh, absolutely. I had a good time. Absolutely. I'm glad you did. All right. Thank you, Asia. I'm about to close up the show.
You got it. I'm headed out. Thanks again. Call me Wiz. I'll send you everything when I log off.
Okay.
Awesome.
Once again, thank you, Asia.
Thank you.
All right, guys, that was me and my friend Asia. We had a great discussion today about what Tupac and Donald Trump have in common, but more importantly, we spoke about the Charlie Kirk situation, the murder, and I'm glad to hear from her. I'm always glad to hear from her. So shout out to her and her sister Arshelle and anyone else. Call me Wiz. Thank you guys for all coming to the show. Like I said, I'm gonna start doing more biblical topics. But I had to cover this since this has been a big thing on everybody's mind, was the whole Charlie Kirk situation. And I remember, like I said, me and Asia spoke about the Tupac thing a while back. But anyway, guys, thank you so much. God bless you all. I love you all. Take care. This is JB 9 Deuce representing JB's No Weapon Live. This is JB's No Weapon Live. Take care. God bless. And I will see you guys